connection with the punch, which many people know. But first of all, I want to have an again know that this breakdown, this act of creativity from the expansion of intelligent discourse was actually almost indistinguishable from one organization called the Committee of 10. Punch came out at a significant moment in this nation's history. It is when the nation was attempting to recover from the travails of the Civil War. And the Committee of 10, almost coterminous with Punch, Punch actually carried most of their points of view. They came into play, and they were great supporters of the then regime of General Yakubu. Very good friend of mine. He was my landlord. And I, however, was no fan of this, not at that time. And so I found myself on the opposite side of both the Committee of 10 and the Punch. The connection was my cousin, in fact, Shobo, the late Shobo Soyinka. It gives me joy to be able to bring him back to life for a few moments, for one of the leads and friends. And he was a passionate supporter of Yakubu. One of his favorite places was his club in Ikoyi. It was either Island Club or Yoruba Tennis Club, I can't remember. All I do recollect was that on his way from his club, I was then teaching at Lagos University, but I stayed outside in Igobi. And on his way, he made a point of always stopping by to continue his activities, which he left behind at the club. Finding out, arriving always with a cold bag filled with beer. I would sit down and, of course, discuss politics. Shubo had at that time, I think it was one of the few people who had sports coupe, especially of the expensive kind. It was either a BMW or a Mercedes. But he hated to drive. And yet he loved that car. But he also loved, curiously enough, he enjoyed watching me drive it. He would even tell me to go faster. He enjoyed the thrill of riding it, but he just would never drive that car. So we come, and by the end, of course, of our session, it was never in good condition to drive, even if he not drive. So he would dismiss his driver, and would make me drive him home, and drive the car back, or then his driver would pick it up from me at the Igobi. But there was this point, he did his best to convert me, but I failed as a pupil. I just remained opposed to the military regime, whoever was heading it, be it Aguirre Ransky or Gawon, whatever. And eventually, of course, cousin or no cousin, this partnership, this tutorship collapsed. And I began to go on air in the press, stating my views. And by the time the man died, my prison memoirs came out when I excoriated everybody. My cousin was really heartbroken. The Punch did not spare punches. The Committee of 10, even my cousin felt it was his duty to throw the hardest point at his dearly beloved cousin. That was the nature of contest in those days. Now, these reminiscences are largely for us to enjoy, to recollect, friendly battles, and so on. They're not intended to vindicate or excoriate one side of that particular context. But also they're meant to serve a purpose, a warning. What is our warning? Let me narrate it in form of a letter which some of us received from our colleagues in the neighboring country. I quote, Dear Anthony, Cornell, Noam, Ole, I hope this email will find you well. I'm sad, but I would like to inform you about what is going on. Chaotic socio-political situation in Senegal. A month ago, you were kind enough to sign a petition where we, Senegalese intellectuals, called on Macky Sall, the head of state of Senegal, to stop the instrumentalization of justice. We thought that this appeal, which is very successful, would have brought the head of state to reason. Unfortunately, they have stubbornly carried on with the repression of the opposition and the popular will of the people of Senegal. Today, the consequences are horrible. In the past 3 days, about 15 very young people were killed by police force and the armed militia of the head of state, not to mention those seriously injured alongside thousands of extrajudicial arrests. The situation is very worrying and unstable, with risks dangerous for Africa and the Senegalese democracy. Thank you for your attention. Let us discuss about Nigeria. I bring this to our immediate perspective, simply because, in case you haven't noticed, the crafty belt has been forming all along the northern southwestern region. These belts don't appear from nowhere for no cause. The causes and the signals are always there. That is one of them. This kind of letter has gone around the world, other African intellectuals, writers, the diaspora, nothing new about it. And the warnings are there, and interventions are made. And suddenly, we ask ourselves, why then we thought the Nigerian Civil War as a lesson, plus situation in Burkina Faso, that we come to the state where we understand that it's obscene to see a picture in the newspapers, as we've seen in some of these neighboring countries, of civilians carrying soldiers triumphantly. See, here come once again the saviors, as if we have not been there before. That very letter was followed shortly, by the way, that's the first letter, about a year ago, with some of the most violent scenes that Senegal has ever encountered since its independence from the European nation. This year, just a few days ago, another letter came from the same source to the same people. Here goes. Dear sir, dear all, I hope you're well. Surely you are aware that Senegal is currently undergoing a major crisis. The President of the Republic has abruptly halted the electoral process, cancelling for the first time in Senegal's history the presidential elections scheduled for February 25. That's a couple of days ago. With his mandate ending on April 2nd, he has decided to postpone elections to December 15. The entire country is in anger. It is uncertain what will happen, but it's highly likely we're entering a cycle of uncontrollable violence. This head of state and his entourage have been involved in many malpractices and corruptions that he fears for his own safety. We, intellectuals, civil societies, and political parties are organizing ourselves for resistance. That's the current situation. I will keep you informed of development and actions to be taken as regards to take place. So what is it? Just what is it? The happening starts on this line. The country belt for Dossa Nekel that I mentioned earlier is of course consolidating. It's not only consolidating, but preparing itself, if it hasn't already, to secede from the umbrella body ECOWAS. were encouraged, of course, as you may have noticed, by the fact that they had European support, but this time from another side. No longer the Western imperialists, no. It's now the Eastern, former Eastern Bloc, shall we say. And it's a very curious coincidence, perhaps, or perhaps there's a pact among the leaders of the US that only Francophone members, regions, are admitted. Could be a coincidence. An attempt was made to involve an Anglophone, but that somehow petered out. And so we are abandoning Francophonie, and in some cases, many cases, Anglophonie, and now we are entering Russophonia, substituting one imperialist order for another. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a quite comforting way of viewing it, of saying, for instance, good, serve the West right. The chickens are coming home to roost. Let the Western imperialists now understand, get a feel of what it is like to be wrong, or what was never yours. Vladimir Putin, after long years of denial of the surrogate forces, the Wagner Group, been operating on this continent, finally felt it was time to come clean. It was rather like he'd been listening to us in Nigeria. And after viewing the West and how they feel for so many decades, centuries in fact, he decided to convene his own one-man Berlin conference and moved out. I think he was listening to some of our electioneering campaign. So he looked the Western forces in the face and he said, "Miloko." That's where we are today, and the question I ask again and again is it really necessary to substitute one imperial force for another? We were leading along, I admit, lots of problem, insurrection, religious fanaticism, extremism of all kinds, marginalization, hunger, food shortages. Yes, all that we admit. But is true liberation really impossible? Do we actually have to go through surrogates, distant empires, in order to come to fulfillment? Ask ourselves whether there isn't an instinct to perpetuate the unfinished business of nation being, which is one of the major causes of the entry of military force into our lives. This does not excuse, no, please don't misunderstand. Military intervention in civic life is unprincipled, it's opportunistic, and very often it's simply dehumanizing. Nobody wants it. Even ex-soldiers who fortunately have had a taste of the other side have come out, I think we all heard him saying, I don't want to return to military rule. But if along the coast, along the West African coast, conduct such as I have just narrated continues, who can blame the crowd for coming out and carrying soldiers once again shoulder high and saying, welcome, redeemers. I believe it's time to learn to stop the cycle of violence, especially through invoking the forces of violence only subjugate us, either directly or in association with alien forces. Among those alien forces, I wish to group also the religious. And through that, to highlight a case that tests, indeed questions, are very clear to a single nation. If we operate on a dual mandate of justice, we cannot be surprised if from time to time that sovereignty that we treasure so much, that we breathe so much, that we sing so much about in the national anthem, is put to the test. We congratulate ourselves saying that, yes, we survived the Civil War. Now we install the 3 R's: reconciliation, reconstruction, etc. Put over the federal mouth, 3 R's. Giving the lie to some of us who said that people once decided on secession can never be defeated. That expression, I remember, was taken